Chaomeng planted the land for me, Kuaishong watered me, and alpaca served as a mount. Youth dream should wake up. I like to milk myself in a big milk can. A silly shell beast holding its tail and sucking non-stop lick your own cream fairy wildly lucky eggs that dazzle with each mouthful and don't slack off for me, go water it. Scallion Duck, just talk about you. Are you planting ingredients for yourself? Facing the sea, spring is warm and flowers are blooming, but the elves in this pasture are not very normal. Chapter 1. Will and Flower Town and Ranch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the branches, the waves chattered incessantly, ignoring Ling Lan who needed a nap. The long-tailed monster hands were jumping up and down the pipes outside the building, while Meow Meow and Little Lotta were playing with speed and passion. Yes, this is a world where elves have coexisted with humans since ancient times. Ling Lan sat in the coffee shop in the border town of Flower Town, looking at the history book in his hand and feeling extremely relaxed. For example, LV holds the Fangtian painting halberd and sits down, the flame horse is unstoppable. Zhao Zilong cooperates with the Thunderbolt zebra to enter and exit 7 times, and Chao Boss even shuttles back and forth to multiple Xanadu boudoirs every night. What kind of ambition is this? How spirited is it? Previously, as a person without a car, a house, or savings, I dared not expect to be able to afford to raise another elf outside of myself. But now, he has received a will from the mysterious second uncle. As for being an orphan, he doesn't want to delve deeper into the question of why he suddenly had a second uncle. In short, he is poor and has nothing to be deceived by. Ling Lan. Suddenly, a crisp voice pulled Ling Lan back to reality. Ling Lan turned her head and saw a girl wearing a ponytail and school uniform waving at her while sitting on a Kentello ox cart. Are you? Ling Lan was a bit puzzled. She didn't know this young and beautiful girl, nor did she think she was handsome enough to make the girl fall in love. The girl smiled clearly and said, "My name is Lin Yi, Grandpa asked me to pick you up." Lin Yi. Your grandfather. Ling Lan took out a letter from his second uncle, which stated that after completing the handover of his will, he would go to the tavern in Flower Town to find an old man named Lin Xuejian, but did not mention anything about Lin Yi. Lin Xuejian is my grandfather. Grandpa has been waiting for you for a long time. I will take you to the ranch now. Come with me. Lin Yi smiled and greeted Ling Lan to get on the ox cart quickly. Is it really okay to sit in this Kentello car? Ling Lan remembers that elves like Kentaro have a notorious bad temper. If something happens while sitting on this thing, no one will inherit the ranch of the second master. No problem. Lin Yi smiled and touched Kentello's buttocks, indicating that my cow was different. After Lin Yi finished speaking, Ling Lan suddenly saw a flower in front of her, and a mist appeared out of nowhere, condensing into a paragraph of text in mid-air. Task objective. Receive the ranch. Task description. As a future rancher, how can you not have your own ranch? Task reward. The mysterious elf left by the second master for you. Lying down. Is this the essential golden finger for travelers? Ling Lan was slightly taken aback, feeling ecstatic in her heart. As for the characteristics of this golden finger, I can't analyze anything in the short term, so let's wait and do a few more tasks before we talk. Okay. Since the task prompt had been given, Ling Lan no longer hesitated and quickly sat down. After a brief conversation, Ling Lan also learned about Lin Yi's general situation. Lin Yi's family also owns a ranch, and it is also a famous ranch nearby. She herself studied at the first high school of the Tulip City's animal husbandry. Her ranch is located near her own ranch, and the two ranches are not far apart. Moreover, Lin Yi's grandfather and his second uncle have been good friends for many years, and some inheritance still needs to be handed over to her by the other party. Along the way, Ling Lan swayed and lay on a cart filled with straw, listening to the songs hummed by Lin Yi, and couldn't help but fantasize about his future days. As time passed, the slate road gradually turned into a dirt road, with patches of farmland on both sides of the path. In the distance, high mountains undulated continuously, and wild elves could often be seen on the roadside. After Ling Lan's observation, Lin Yi did not boast. His Kentaro has a really good temper. For example, a duck that had just emerged from a rice field blocked the middle of the road and stared straight at Kentello for half a day. But this Kentaro not only did not get angry, but also patiently waited for the duck to move away before continuing forward. Kentaro ************** Look, my Luo Luo has a good temper and is very gentle. Lin Yi tilted her small head and proudly patted Kentello's buttocks. It's quite gentle. Ling Lan nodded in agreement. After receiving praise from the host and guests, Kentello smiled and wagged his tail, continuing to move forward leisurely. Fearing that Ling Lan's patience would run out, Lin Yi pointed to the path ahead and explained, "Follow this path for another half hour and you'll reach your ranch." Okay. Ling Lan nodded. It has been so long, so naturally there is not a shortage of time. Time passed by little, and Kentello walked for less than 5 minutes. Surprisingly, the duck caught up from the river and jumped into the middle of the road, holding its head and staring straight at Kentello. Kentaro. After waiting for a while, Lin Yi couldn't help but speak out and dissuade Jia from leaving. "Can you please make way for Jia? We're in a hurry to go home." Ga. Upon hearing Lin Yi's voice, the duck then shifted his gaze away from Kentello's face, tilted his head to glance at Lin Yi, and slowly moved away. Seeing that the duck finally gave way, Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief and smiled awkwardly at Ling Lan. This duck is indeed a bit cheap. Ling Lan roast. To be honest, he has seen many bitches, but this is the first time he has seen such a lowly duck, which is just like Xiao Xia's. Kentello strongly agrees, but he doesn't know what kind of behavior this duck is taking. He always blocks his own path, but fortunately, he has been cultivating his character recently. Cultivating his character. Just as Kentello was sighing, suddenly the sound of duck feet draining water echoed again in the left river channel. Ling Lan, Lin Yi, and Kentaro looked at it at the same time, and sure enough, the familiar duck appeared in the river again. Ga. Kodak once again blocked the road and stared straight at Kentello without stopping. Reachable duck. Winky face. Kentello. Kentello. Hidden vessel. Moo. The 3 consecutive provocations made Kentello completely furious, with 2 long horns shining white on his head and 2 air masses spewing out from his thick nostrils. With a loud moo, he vigorously pushed towards the top of the duck. Gaga gaga. Seeing Kentello really angry, the duck let out a strange cry and immediately ran away, but the twisted and lowly appearance of his but made Kentello even more furious. Luo Luo, calm down. The first time Lin Yi saw Kentaro angry, she also panicked, but unfortunately, no matter how much she tried to appease her, it didn't have much effect. Moo. In a fit of rage, Kentello, disregarded the consequences and ran with red eyes and 4 hooves, with only one thought in my mind. To smash this despicable duck into flesh and mud. Chapter 2. Crazy Kentello. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hurry up. Ling Lan held Lin Yi tightly while tightly grasping the tumbling cart. Based on the experience of Ling Lan from the old wet machine, although I don't know why the unlucky duck could run so fast, by this time, the speed of the Tyro must have reached 60 or 70, which is no different from the driving car. If it were to be thrown down, it would be the lightest result of a fracture. In this pursuit and escape, the journey that was originally only half an hour long was not long before it was completed. A dilapidated pasture gradually appeared in the distance, and at the entrance of the pasture, an old man with white beard was waiting for something with a smile on his face. "Grandpa, quickly dodge." Lin Yi waved her hand wildly, afraid that her grandfather, who had bad eyes, would be hit by the crazy Kentello. Faced with the frantic fleeing ducks and the rampaging Kentaro, Mr. Lin did not avoid them. Instead, he still stood at the entrance of the ranch with his hands behind his back and a smile on his face. Seeing his calm demeanor, Ling Lan pondered in his heart, is it possible that this close friend of second master is a very skilled trainer? Or is it any hermit or expert? Grandpa, it's dangerous. Lin Yi was crying in a hurry, thinking to herself that even if Grandpa's eyes were not good, it wouldn't matter. Why are his ears still not working properly? It wasn't until recently that Mr. Lin realized something was wrong. Isn't he meowing so much? In the face of the galloping reap duck and Kentello, old man Lin's waist was not sore and his legs were not hurt. A quick lazy dager, glutinous rice rolls with sweet bean flour, rolled around to avoid the collision. The duck followed the damaged fence into the pasture, while Kentaro was much simpler, crashing into the fence with a loud bang and following in. Stupid beasts, save them. Mr. Lin took a few breaths and quickly threw out a Pok É Mon ball. Stupid, the dull shell beast stood in place, facing the rampaging Kentello, its eyes shining with superpowers, quickly enveloping Ling Lan and Lin Yi. Ling Lan felt as if he was wrapped in jelly, and the next moment he left Kentello's cart and came to the ground. Kentaro, who was rampaging around, had no feeling at all and chased after the ducks, causing extensive damage in the pasture. The arrival of Kentello has made the already dilapidated ranch even worse. Oh, oh, oh. The owner of this ranch doesn't know who it is, but it's blood mold. Ling Lan doesn't mind the big deal when eating melons, he just shakes his head straight. Kentello, who had been tinkering around the ranch, finally calmed down after losing his goal. Who? It finally stopped. Mr. Lin wiped his sweat and glanced awkwardly at Ling Lan. I'm sorry. Lin Yi stuck out her tongue and angrily patted Kentello's buttocks. Moo, calm down. Kentello also felt a bit embarrassed and lowered his head, afraid to look at her. Daika beast, take Kentello to reflect first. Lin Lao carried his hands behind his back. If it weren't for the mud on his body and face, he would have looked somewhat like an extraordinary expert. As if feeling embarrassed, Lin coughed and asked, Are you Ling Lan? Hello sir, it's me. Ling Lan politely greeted him and looked forward to what kind of elf the second master had left for him. At this moment, a mist appeared again in front of Ling Lan's eyes. Task completed. Reward the mysterious elf left for you by second grandpa. Mr. Lin just took out a red and white Pok É Mon ball and said, This is the Pok É Mon left for you by your second uncle. It's the offspring of his partner. You should take good care of it. Seeing the Pok É Mon ball, Ling Lan narrowed his eyes. The reward was indeed not created out of thin air. Is that a golden finger belonging to the category of guiding fingers? Taking the Pok É ball, Ling Lan asked, What are the Pok É Mon inside the Pok É ball? Mr. Lin deliberately played a trick and said, Wait and see for yourself. In the future, you can ask me anything you don't understand about the ranch. Ling Lan nodded and thank you Grandpa Lin, but I don't know where my ranch is yet. Ah. Lin Yi's face fluttered with two red clouds, and she turned around awkwardly. Mr. Lin awkwardly pointed to the ranch that had been destroyed by Kenteros and said, Ahem, isn't that your ranch? Ah. Looking at this desolate and dilapidated pasture, Ling Lan was completely dumbfounded. She didn't expect to eat a melon and eat it on herself. Cough, cough, Xiaoling, don't worry, just pack the materials for repairing the fence on me. It's getting late, so go and take a look. After speaking, Mr. Lin immediately took Lin Yi's head and drove away without looking back. This. Sigh. Ling Lan smiled and shook his head, although the ranch was unexpectedly damaged, his mood was also excellent. The entire ranch covers an area of over 3,000 acres, which is enough to build a university city. However, although the ranch is large, the land enclosed by fences is actually very small, only the size of 10 football fields, and other places are abandoned. The ranch has been neglected for a long time, with weeds overgrown inside and occasional sightings of wild elves. It seems that cleaning it up is also a time-consuming and laborious task. Just as he had this idea, a cloud of smoke appeared again in mid-air in front of Ling Lan. Task: explore the main building of the ranch. Task description: as the owner of the ranch, I don't even have a place to live like anything. Task reward: high-quality daylight grass seeds. Is there a new task again? And the reward this time is also somewhat different, but it seems that the rewards are all things that one will soon or will need in the future. So it seems that this golden finger is quite interesting, a bit like the arrangement of fate. Ling Lan shook her head and walked in through the gate of the ranch. The buildings in the ranch were very simple, with only a dilapidated 2-story wooden building and 3 basketball court-sized warehouses. The other buildings collapsed for a long time due to the help of wild elves. Isn't this room already occupied by wild elves? Although Ling Lan knew that Mr. Lin would definitely help him tidy up in advance, it was inevitable that the old man would neglect it. If there were any unforeseen circumstances, wouldn't his own life be at risk? After careful consideration, Ling Lan couldn't care about the sense of ceremony when he first met, so he decided to first see what kind of elf the second grandpa had left for him. Pressing the switch on the Pok É Mon ball, a burst of light flashed through, and unknown Pok É Mon gathered on the ground. Looking at the gradually formed elf, Ling Lan's heart couldn't help but become excited. If this old man had left behind a mini dragon, a round land shark or something, wouldn't he still take off in place? If we take a step back, the 3 royal elves such as Little Fire Dragon, Little Fire Monkey, and Little Saw Crocodile are also good. Just as Ling Lan was having a wild idea, there was already a cute little one under his feet. The creamy yellow sideburns fluttered in the wind, and the limbs were thick and powerful. Chapter 3. Exploration of the main building. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wong Wong. Katy Dog crouched on the ground, tongue out and wagging its tail happily rubbing against Ling Lan's pants legs. So it's a Katy Dog. Ling Lanxin happily crouched down and stroked the hair of the Katy Dog, feeling his damp and hot tongue constantly licking the touch of his palm. It seems that my mysterious second uncle really has some skills, to be able to get an elf with a strong official color like Katy Dog. And judging from the development of the little one, its potential is probably also excellent. If cultivated well, it will definitely become a capable leader in the ranch. It is not impossible to drive away wolves and swallow tigers in the future. The spring breeze blew by, and the tall and short weeds in the pasture all bent down, and the air echoed with the sounds of Ling Lan and Katy Dog playing. Okay, we need to take care of each other more in the future, Katy. Ling Lan decided to test the current strength of the Katy Dog before entering the house. What skills do you know now, little one? Ling Lan scratched the chin of Katy Dog. There are elf guides in this world, which can detect energy feedback from elves up close, as the saying goes, their strength level. Unfortunately, I am not a trainer, so I definitely don't have this thing. Otherwise, if I can see the level, I can roughly judge the skills that Katy Dog has already mastered. Just as Ling Lan was pondering, the magical smoke reappeared. Elf. Katy Dog, level 10, potential. B status. Healthy gender. Male attribute. Fire feature. Ignite, when damaged by flames, not only will you not be injured, but you will also increase the power of your fire attribute skills. Carrying props. None genetic skills. Morning light, burnout, mountain top, close combat basic skills. Bite, spark, odor detection skill CD. None skill transfer. None note. Cultivate excellent puppies lying trough. This smoke text actually has an identification function. Didn't I post it myself? Ling Lan's heart tugged hard, he really made a lot of money this time. Katy, let me see your strength. Woo woof. As soon as the owner tried to test himself, Katy Dog immediately became serious. Use bite. The Katy Dog, who received the command, aimed at a small tree with arms thick and bit it hard. Bang bang. The trees tremble and the sawdust flies. Ling Lon nodded, the bite force of the Katy Dog is still very good. Next, spark. Ling Lon tried all the skills and found that besides biting, although he could use spark and odor detection, he was not very proficient in using them. As for those genetic skills, let alone those that have not been fully mastered, whether they can be used or not depends entirely on luck. It should be enough to use. Since Mr. Lin said he had already roughly cleaned himself up, there are hardly any powerful wild elves here. Looking at the slightly dilapidated two-story building in front of him, Ling Lon took advantage of the sunset and pushed open the door with his Katy Dog. Zhiya, as the wooden door slowly opened, a faint damp smell mixed with dust poured into the nose. The slanting sun shines through the cracks of the door in the living room, and the spring breeze blows, causing countless dust particles to float in the air. It seems that no one has lived here for a long time. Ling Lon opened the door completely, but he didn't rush in. Because on the dusty floor, there are already many footprints of different sizes, and it is obvious that these are not human footprints. The layout of the first-floor living room is very simple, with an open kitchen, an L-shaped sofa, a bookshelf, and everything except for appliances. At the end of the living room is the solid wood staircase leading to the second floor. Woo-woo. Katy Dog suddenly blocked Ling Lon and kept issuing warning sounds towards the corner of the living room. There is indeed a problem. Because he didn't know the specific situation, Ling Lon decided to give the other party a courtesy before the enemy. Here are 3 numbers for you, leave my house immediately, otherwise don't blame me for letting the dog go. Ahem, the Katy Dog, the size of a watermelon, made a coordinated long roar, but the sound sounded somewhat milky no matter how it sounded. Hearing the disdain from the dark, Ling Lon suddenly blush. Katy, don't go in. Ling Lon stopped the angry Katy Dog. Currently, the little one only knows how to catch sparks. If he doesn't want to burn down his house, it's better to fight outside. The clever Katy Dog immediately understood Ling Lan's meaning in seconds. Woo, woof, woof. Wow, wow, wow. The Katy Dog barked wildly while aligning its buttocks with the position of the sofa, and used its tail to pull its buttocks and make a face-twitching gesture, this. Not to mention the wild elf hidden in the dark, even Ling Lon couldn't bear to see it. How could you slap your face with your butt? Gaga. Sure enough, Katy Dog's provocation had an effect, and the elf hidden in the dark finally couldn't bear it and rushed out. Coconut Monkey. Looking at the elf rushing towards the sky, Ling Lon quickly asked Katy Dog to avoid it. Katy Dog is very agile and quickly jumps to the side at the moment Ling Lon gives instructions. Hua hua. The failed Coconut Monkey did not pursue the victory, but stood on the ground panting non-stop. Elf. Coconut Monkey, level 15, potential. E status. Injured gender. Male attribute. Characteristic. Prosperous, when seriously injured, it will stimulate potential and increase the power of grass attribute skills. Carrying props. Peach fruit genetic skills. Seed machine gun, kick down basic skills. Scratching, tongue licking, rattan whip, random scratching, parasitic seed skill CD. Shadow clone, energy ball skill transfer. None level 15. When will it be better not to walk at this time? Wait, a coconut monkey with injuries on its body. Help me up, I can fight again. Originally, Ling Lon was ready to run, but seeing that this coconut monkey was injured, how could he give up this opportunity to hit the dog in pain? Katy Dog uses sparks. Woo! Katy let out a fierce spark, and sparks the size of marbles shot sparsely towards the coconut monkey. The coconut monkey is unable to avoid injuries and can only use a seed machine gun to retaliate. The coconut monkey took a deep breath and the emerald green seeds gushed out. Due to the difference in strength, the comparison between the two sides is simply the difference between Gatling and assault rifles. Fortunately, the coconut monkey was injured too severely, and after not spraying for a while, it covered its chest and was out of breath. At this moment, the sparks finally broke through the blockade of the seed machine gun and exploded on the coconut monkey. Flower the coconut monkey was blown back and forth, and the hair on its chest was burnt out. Looking at the proud catty dog, the coconut monkey cursed a few words and ran towards the distance in a flash. Get it done. Ling Lan touched the head of Katy Dog and praised him several times. Wong Wong. Katy Dog held its head high to receive Ling Lan's praise, its furry big tail swaying like a propeller. Are there any wild elves on the first floor? Wong Wong. The Katy Dog shook its head suddenly and then looked straight at the second floor. Chapter 4. It disappears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is there anything else on the second floor? Ling Lan frowned slightly. These wild elves are really excessive. They just occupy their pastures and don't even let go of their houses. Let's go. Ling Lan decided to drive away all the elves in the house in one go. If it didn't work out, he would call for Grandpa Lin to come and help. If he didn't believe it, he wouldn't be able to clean them up. Woo woof. Although the opponent's strength has not been fully determined yet, the brave spirit of Katy Dog will always charge ahead of its owner. One person and one dog quickly arrived at the second floor, and the layout of the second floor was also very simple, with an open master bedroom and an unopened second bedroom, as well as a locked room. Just as he stopped at the second floor station, Katy Dog suddenly turned his head in confusion, and just now he couldn't feel the scent of the other person. It's as if his scent fills any corner of the second floor, and it's as if it's not even here. What's wrong, Katy? Where is the other person? Ling Lan is ready to retreat at any time. As long as the opponent is too strong, he will definitely turn around and run with the Katy Dog without saying a word. Disappeared. Ling Lan understood the meaning of Katy Dog. Did the other party understand the difficulty and retreat? Just as Ling Lan was puzzled, the smoke text reappeared. Task completed. Reward mutated daylight grass seeds. Has the task been completed? Ling Lan breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that there were indeed no wild elves in this house. It's really strange. Why did my mysterious second uncle buy this ranch in the first place? Why do you have to leave it idle after buying it all? Isn't this burned by money? Ling Lan shook his head, and the furniture on the second floor was also covered in dust. Knowing that task rewards were guided rather than created out of thin air, Ling Lan began to organize and search for them. It seems that if you want to have a good night's sleep, this will be a big project. Katy Dog was busy on the side, and his furry big tail came in handy. It wasn't until the sun set that Ling Lan finally cleaned the entire small building, and at the same time, the bag of seeds was found in the grocery store filled with tools. Item name. Mutated sungrass seed, item introduction. Excellent crops in spring, after mutation, only need 30 days to mature. Elves who eat this kind of grass for a long time can greatly enhance their physical fitness. If they can be taken care of by Bulbasaur, the maturity time will be further reduced. Sitting on the sofa, Ling Lan couldn't help but feel that it was really a good thing, but what was the reason for this mutation? Is it due to the smoke mission, or is this ranch already unusual? Or, what unknown secrets are buried underground in this pasture? Ha ha ha, Katy Dog lay on the sofa with its belly flipped over, its little eyes constantly staring at Ling Lan, thinking to itself that it had worked so hard. Why hasn't the owner come to touch my belly? Ling Lan naturally didn't notice the caution of Katy Dog. He was completely attracted by the next task. New task. Opening up farmland, task description. There is not yet a usable piece of farmland in your ranch, it's time to take action. Task reward. Mysterious plants, mysterious plants. Is it a tree fruit? Although artificial cultivation has been widely adopted in this world, the taste and effectiveness of artificially cultivated fruits are greatly reduced compared to wild fruits. At best, only primary and intermediate energy blocks can be made, and the raw materials for advanced energy blocks and high-end cuisine are always wild tree fruits. However, the number of wild fruit trees is rare, often growing in sparsely populated areas and often being occupied by wild elves, so finding one is not an easy task. Ling Lan is now in dire straits. If he could find wild tree fruits, then the first bucket of gold would have a place to settle. Dong dong dong. Just as Ling Lan was stunned, a crisp knocking sounded outside the door. Is brother Ling Lan there? Grandpa asked me to bring you some clean bedding. Lin Yi. Ling Lan stood up happily. This little girl came just in time. She was worried that the bedding on the bed wouldn't be useful. Ling Lan opened the door and brought the little girl in, taking the thick bedding and thanking, I really trouble you all. Wong Wong. Katy dog stood at Ling Lan's feet wagging its tail, welcoming Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled playfully and said, You're welcome. I hope brother Jia Ling's ranch will start operating soon, so that I can have another place to play. Ling Lan looked at the sky and said, Okay, why don't I take you back so late? No need, my family's cows are with me. Lin Yi said as she stepped aside, and not far away, Kentello was gently nibbling on the weeds on the ground. Okay, then I can rest assured. As soon as Ling Lan thought about the crazy appearance of this cow, he immediately put his heart in his stomach. Farewell. Lin Yi lay on a warm mattress, and Ling Lan lay leisurely on the big bed. In the unpolluted rural night sky, the stars shone brightly, and under his feet, the Katy dog slept soundly. Accompanied by the warm and humid spring breeze, Ling Lan was extremely satisfied with his life. Taking out the books about crops from the bookshelf, Ling Lan carefully flipped through them. In this world, to manage a ranch well, one cannot do without the help of elves. Even many elves are a treasure, such as the fruit on the neck of a tropical dragon, a teapot for brewing wine, and sweet bamboo juice, and so on. We also need to gradually introduce ourselves to the pasture, such as the big milk jar and mealy sheep. In addition, the ranch security team will also start planning. It is impossible to protect the safety of such a large ranch with just one Katy dog. Should we create a field with quasi-gods in the future? What about those legendary elves? It's not impossible, is it? For example, asking Gulatin to cultivate land, sitting in the air to spread clouds and rain, and the Phoenix King to shine. With this thought in mind, Ling Lan finally fell asleep. Warm sunshine poured into the room through the window, and the branches outside the window were chattering with waves. On the small path between the pastures, early morning herdsmen had already rushed to the town to trade goods. On the field path, Mr. Lin sighed while smoking a dry cigarette and said, Alas, the transportation here is really inconvenient. Every time we sell goods, it's exhausting. If this continues, let's just close the door. The old man who was walking with him took a deep puff of his cigarette and agreed, Yes, but mainly because our place is not well known and we don't have any high quality products. Otherwise, where would we be used to sell? Those big companies outside haven't squeezed us out yet. Hey, Lao Lin. I heard that the abandoned ranch next to you has been taken over by someone. Mr. Lin nodded and said, A young man has arrived. It's really strange. That ranch has been abandoned for over a decade, why did an heir suddenly come? Chapter 5. The Sneaky Guy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Never mind, you mind this matter. Listening to the noise coming from outside the window, Ling Lan slowly opened his eyes. Woo! The catty dog immediately noticed that its owner was awake and stood up, with its two front paws resting on the bed licking Ling Lan's palms. Indeed, I have truly traveled through time. Ling Lan vigorously rubbed the head of the Katy dog, and it was only now that he was certain that he truly lived in this world, rather than Nankiameng. Woo woof. Although Katy dog couldn't understand what Ling Lan meant, it didn't stop him from laughing foolishly along with him. Ling Lan jumped up with great enthusiasm and said, "Okay, our task is still very heavy today. Firstly, we need to cultivate a field that can be planted." Woo. Opening the door, the view was wide, and the humid morning air mixed with the fragrance of soil rushed towards me. In the distance, there were heavy mountain shadows, and from time to time, flying elves could be seen spreading their wings. In the endless pasture, not only are weeds and trees filled up, but occasionally a few wild elves emerge. Ling Lan climbed up the wooden ladder to the roof and observed his territory carefully. In front of me, which is to the north, there are patches of pastures, and to the south, there are vast mountains. On the mountains, there is the cemetery of the small town. Every villager and elf in Flower Town will be buried here after their death. I heard that behind this high mountain lies the sea, but it is really high. The mountain is covered in white snow, and it is said that a long time ago, there were also frozen birds around. Moreover, there are too many wild elves on the mountain that are too powerful for anyone to climb over. Thinking of the sea, Ling Lan couldn't help but shudder. He had encountered a shipwreck when he didn't remember, so he had an inexplicable fear of the deep sea. To the west lies the road leading to Wawashen and other scattered crops, while to the east lies a considerable lake connected to one's own pasture. It is said that there used to be no lakes there, but one day it was said that there was a battle between the elves, and this lake was forcibly blasted out. The area enclosed by a fence is about the size of 10 football fields, but of course, the area within the fence is less than 1/10 of the entire pasture. The boundary between the ranch and the Lingjia Ranch is a river about 3 meters wide, and the irrigation of nearby farms mainly relies on this river. The task goal is to cultivate 1 acre of land, so let's start with the entrance area. The saying goes, pick the soft persimmon first and pinch it. Ling Lan pointed to little Lotta, the owner of the ranch, who was not even a bird in the weeds, and shouted, "Katy dog uses sparks." Woo! The Katy dog pounced and opened its mouth in mid-air, spraying a series of sparks. Little Lotta is used to being around here, and how could he have thought that something unexpected would happen today? When he realized he wanted to hide, sparks had already exploded on him. After tidying up the vegetable chicken, little Lotta Ling Lan continued to shout, "Continue to the next one." Woo! Katy dog is full of energy, chasing and beating wild elves in the nearby grassland. For a whole morning, Ling Lan and his Katy dog thoroughly washed the wild elves in this acre of land. My own ranch is covered in weeds and there is not much food, so naturally there won't be any overly powerful elves. The current Katy dog beating them is completely cruel. Woo woof. After a morning of fighting, although Katy dog was half exhausted, he was able to proficiently master the skills of spark and odor detection, even reaching level 11. Without the disturbance of wild elves, Ling Lan was finally able to tidy up this area with peace of mind. Although people in this world have exceptionally good health, due to lack of farming experience, Ling Lan worked on this task for 2 days. It was not until the 3rd day that this acre of land was cleared up. Fortunately, for the past 3 days, Ling Lan and Katy dog have relied on Lin Yi to feed them on time, otherwise they would have really starved these 2 guys out. Looking at the land that had already been turned over in front of him, Ling Lan couldn't help but feel 1,000 emotions. Next, sowing, covering with soil, and watering will be much easier, and with the help of a Katy dog, it will be ready in just 1 afternoon. Task completed. Reward mysterious plants, how do I get this? Just when Ling Lan was at a loss, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a Scallion Duck sneaking in from outside the fence in the distance. What does that mean? Ling Lan smiled, this thief-eyed duck must have done nothing good. Let's go take a look. Fortunately, there is nothing happening now. In order to explore the news of the mysterious plant, Ling Lan decided to try his luck on this duck. The Scallion Duck cat crouched down, with scallions under its wings, quietly burying its head and rushing along. I occasionally look around for fear of being discovered by others or elves. But when he looked up again, a dog's head suddenly enlarged in his field of vision. Big onion duck. Oh my goodness, they're actually growing onions in my ranch. At this point, Ling Lan was already standing at the destination of the Scallion Duck. The land was surrounded by trees and weeds, and if you didn't approach, you wouldn't notice anything unusual. I saw that this piece of land had already been planted with 8 or 9 scallions as thick as water pipes, each one shiny, like a shangfang sword. In fact, according to the official terms, this is called a rhizome plant, not a scallion, but unfortunately, the taste is not only similar to scallions, but also more delicious and nutritious, which is why it is named after scallions. This rare wild plant is in short supply on the market, with each one costing as little as tens of thousands of yuan. Gah! Seeing his secret base discovered, the Scallion Duck decided not to dress up and took out his big treasure from his crotch, frantically charging towards Ling Lan and Katy Dog. These scallions are their own lifelines, and they are absolutely not allowed to be touched by outsiders. Elf. Scallion Duck, Level 13, Potential. D. Status. Healthy, startled, gender. Male attribute. General/flight feature. Sharp gaze, extremely high hit rate. Carrying props. None genetic skills. Parrot-like tongue and blade basic skills. Pecking, continuous chopping, swallowing, patting, splitting skill CD. None skill transfer. None note. A special Scallion Duck that masters the technique of planting rhizome plants. Good day, Katy Dog uses sparks. Seeing this green onion field, Ling Lan's eyes lit up. Unexpectedly, this Scallion Duck would still plant this kind of rhizome plant on its own. It's all money, you can't miss it. The Scallion Duck's eyes flickered with brilliance, and the scallions in its hand emitted a green light, waving wildly like a sword, shattering all the sparks that came. There's something. Ling Lan knew in the blink of an eye that this duck's combat power was not inferior to that of Katy Dog. If he fought hard, he would definitely not be able to do well, so he could only come up with a surprise move. Thinking of this, Ling Lan's evil charms smiled and pointed to the scallion under his feet, shouting, "Aim at this scallion and bite it." Woo! Despite not knowing the owner's intentions, the Katy Dog still resolutely carried out, and a vicious dog turned around and bit at the nearest scallion. Chapter 6. First Barrel of Gold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This scene shattered the eyes of the Scallion Duck, and as she saw her own vital organ about to suffer from the dog's mouth, she suddenly rushed towards her, stretching out her wings to stop the Katy Dog. Ling Lan was already prepared and said, "Just bite the Scallion Duck like this." The Scallion Duck only then realized that it had been deceived, but it was too late, and by this time, the Katy Dog had already bitten on its wings. The intense pain made the Scallion Duck break out in cold sweat, and in a fit of urgency, it even tried to bite the Katy Dog back with a parrot-like tongue. Unfortunately, how could his mouth compare to the sharp teeth of a Katy Dog? No matter how much he bit, the Katy Dog remained indifferent and even showed a sarcastic expression. Use sparks like this. The flames flickered in the throat of the Katy Dog, and the dense sparks all exploded on the chest and wings of the Scallion Duck. The Scallion Duck, which had been hit hard in a short period of time, could no longer hold on. In a fit of anger, it rolled its eyes and passed out. Well done, Katy Dog. Ling Lan touched the head of Katy Dog and gave him the last primary fire attribute energy block. Woo woof. Katy Dog crouched proudly at Ling Lan's feet, its thick tail not knowing if it was intentional, wildly slapping the face of the Scallion Duck. Because she hadn't figured out how to deal with this guy yet, Ling Lan temporarily found a rope to tie the Scallion Duck firmly, and casually threw him into the miscellaneous room for her to reflect on. Returning to the field of scallions, Ling Lan counted a total of 9. If he had sold them all, wouldn't he have received 70,000 or 80,000 sprite coins? My Zizi pulled out 8 scallions, leaving only 1 for the Scallion Duck. Ling Lan held this bundle of scallions and sniffed it on his nose. It was indeed a rich and long-lasting aroma of scallions. After tidying up this green field, a new task has indeed arrived. New task. New members of the ranch, task description. Having a ranch owner alone is far from enough. Please add a different variety of elves to the ranch that are beneficial for its development. Task reward. The remaining chapters of the ancient book on animal husbandry and nurturing. Brother Ling, we should go now. Grandpa asked me to take you to the town to collect the rancher's exclusive items. Okay. Ling Lan, who had finished the task, was slightly stunned. It was only when she saw Lin Yi that she remembered her previous agreement to go to Flower Town together today. Sitting on Kentero's ox cart with the Katy dog in his arms, Ling Lan specifically asked, "Kentaro is fine this time, isn't he?" Kentello smiled shyly and shook his head repeatedly, indicating that he must have no problem this time. No problem. Lin Yi nodded fiercely. This time, she had preached many times, believing that even if the duck came out, the cow would not be like before. Ling Lan asked, "What are we going to collect today?" Lin Yi twisted her hair and explained with her fingers, "It seems like there's a field ball exclusively for ranches, and there's also a business license. I'm not quite sure about the rest." After following the rugged path for almost an hour, I finally arrived at Flower Town. Ling Lan rubbed her sore waist and sighed that she must rebuild this road when she gets rich in the future. Well, even though I can't even eat enough now. Arriving at the Animal Husbandry Bureau, Ling Lan easily obtained the Rancher Qualification Certificate and Trainer Certificate, as well as 50 original wild balls and 6 trainer-exclusive Pok É Mon balls, due to the recommendation letter from Mr. Lin and the lax management in remote areas. As he walked out of the Animal Husbandry Bureau, Ling Lan couldn't help but sigh, carrying a backpack of things. "I didn't expect your grandfather's face to be quite big." Lin Yi proudly shook her ponytail and said, "Of course, my grandfather is a famous rancher in this area." Ling Lan took out a bundle of scallions from the cart and said, "By the way, do you know where to sell these things?" "Huh? What is this? Is it scallion?" Lin Yi scratched her head and realized that she had already wanted to ask along the way. Saying it's scallions may seem a bit off, but it looks very much like scallions. Ling Lan shook her head and said, "No, this is the plant that the Scallion Duck is holding." Lin Yi bit her finger and suddenly realized, "Ah. It's that one. I know where to sell it." Speaking, Lin Yi took Ling Lan to a tavern in the corner of the town. "Damn it. Take him down. Great crocodile, come on. Let the giant swamp monster show him your true strength." The noise were incessant, and the air was mixed with the smell of cigarettes and strong sweat stains. A group of naked men formed a circle, with the giant swamp monster and powerful crocodile in the middle using their sucking strength to break their wrists. In the dim light, as the glasses collided, the sound of shouting and noise could not be stopped. As soon as she entered the tavern, Lin Yi was immediately choked by the smell of smoke inside and coughed. Ling Lan frowned slightly, and he didn't really like this noisy environment. "Miss Lin, what brings you here?" In front of the counter, a beautiful young woman dressed in a red qipao was slowly feeding a cigarette into her red lips, and beside him stood a Shipon magic doll mixing wine. Looking at the woman, for some reason, Ling Lan always felt that she was a bit sickly. Lin Yi covered her nose and came to the counter, introducing herself, "Jiang Lan, Brother Lin wants to sell you something." "Oh. You look a bit unfamiliar, young man." Red Lips gently exhaled smoke, and Jiang Lan looked at Ling Lan with interest. Ling Lan nodded with a smile and said, "My name is Ling Lan. I just arrived here. Please take care of Mr. Jiang in the future." Ling Lan. Are you the new rancher? Jiang Lan was somewhat surprised. After seeing Ling Lan nod and admit, she looked at him carefully again. Well, it's me. Ling Lan was taken aback, as if someone was always surprised to take over this ranch. Is there really any secret about this ranch? Jiang Lan shook her head and didn't ask much. Tell me, what kind of goods do you want to sell? For the sake of Lin Yi's reputation, I can give you a fair price, but I won't accept ordinary things. That's it. Ling Lan opened the woven bag, revealing a bundle of crystal-clear onion stems. Jiang Lan paused slightly as she smoked and said, "Oh. Is this the rhizome plant in the hand of the Scallion Duck?" "Yes, wild." Ling Lan emphasized one sentence specifically, fearing that the other party might not be able to see it. "I know." Jiang Lan pursed her lips and smiled, carefully examining each rhizomatic plant. Lin Yi leaned into Ling Lan's ear and said, "How much can it be sold for?" Ling Lan did not answer because he was also uncertain, but there must be tens of thousands of yuan. Jiang Lan replied for a while, "These rhizome plants are wild, yes, but a few are severely damaged. I can only give you 60,000 Pok É Mon coins." 60,000. Lin Yi's eyes lit up when she heard this number. She never expected these onion-like things to be so valuable. If I rob all the Scallion Ducks in the future, wouldn't it be like transforming into a little rich woman every minute? Chapter 7. The first employee of the ranch, Unpaid. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sure. Ling Lan nodded. The price was similar to the market price and had already met his psychological expectations. Anyway, these things were all for nothing. If it's really a loss, then if you want to cry, you'll have to cry. After confirming the receipt of the money, Ling Lan and Jiang Lan exchanged contact information and then followed Lin Yi to make extensive purchases in the flower town. I bought everything I needed, including food, refrigerator, appliances, and everything else. With the addition of Katie's energy blocks and feed, I only had over 40,000 yuan left after a single operation for 60,000 yuan. I pulled a whole load of daily necessities, and by the time I walked back, it was already approaching dusk. Lin Yi hummed a tune and swayed her long legs outside the car. Ling Lan happily picked up a weed and planned to add some more elves to the pasture. At present, relying on one's own funds is definitely not enough to raise cattle and sheep. It seems that farming should still be the main focus. Before Ling Lan could figure it out, an oval-shaped yellow figure appeared again on the gradually familiar road. Lin Yi tightened her body and suddenly had a bad premonition. Kentello. Room this. Katie dog, use sparks. Ling Lan was awakened and gave the order before Kentaro became furious. Woo. Katie the dog rushed to the front of the car, and dense sparks shot towards the duck. Koda Duck didn't expect that besides Kentaro, there would be an extra Katie dog this time. Suddenly, he was sprayed with anger. When he realized it, the Katie dog was already close, only feeling a pain in the abdomen and falling into the river with a thud. "Ha, it's okay." Looking at the duck lying dead in the small river, Ling Lan breathed a slight sigh of relief. "Kentello, let's go quickly." Lin Yi was also afraid of being entangled by the duck, so she quickly asked Kentello to continue on her journey. Watching the ox cart go further and further, the duck lying in the river reluctantly paddled its feet, planning for the next time in its heart. After returning to the ranch, it was almost evening, and after bidding farewell to Lin Yi, Ling Lan also began to tidy up the house. There were quite a few things purchased this time, so it was already late at night when he finished packing up, and even the Katie dog slept for several nights. Gaga. The Scallion Duck, who had been tied up in the clutter room all day, struggled hard. The hunger in his abdomen and the injustice of being robbed prompted him to constantly kick the surrounding debris with his duck paw. Fortunately, hard work pays off for those with intentions. Finally, in the afternoon, he broke free from the rope. With a strong desire for revenge, he did not choose to escape, but instead chose to give Ling Lan a fatal blow in this miscellaneous room. Despite being taken away with weapons and suffering from hunger and cold, as long as you give yourself a moment of opportunity, you can put that kid to death. Did you forget something? Ling Lan frowned slightly, feeling like she had forgotten something important. At this point, the scallion duck in the miscellaneous room has been diligently preparing for more than 10 hours. Although his heart is as firm as iron, prolonged squatting and guarding also consumes a lot of energy. Just like now, he not only feels a bit dizzy, but even his legs and feet are a bit numb. This also fueled his stronger hatred towards Ling Lan. Wow, it's been 5 or 6 hours since I got home, and there's no room for me to take a look at the trash. Uncle can't bear it, Aunt can't bear it. In this way, every extra weight of the scallion duck deepens its hatred towards Ling Lan. By the way, scallion duck. Ling Lan slapped his forehead and actually forgot about this guy. Katie, come with me. For the sake of his own life, Ling Lan decided to prioritize safety. Although it's in one's own territory, how can one say that they have taken away someone else's lair? Stealing duck money is like killing duck parents. The scallion duck squatted quietly in the warehouse, with its eyes fixed on the door. Due to prolonged high concentration of his mind, his eyes gradually became a bit cockeyed and his vision blurred. Bang dang. The door to the miscellaneous room suddenly opened, and a dazzling light shone in. On the spot, Dazzle Duck's line of sight became white and boundless. Despite having no vision, how could the long-awaited scallion duck easily give up? He immediately raised his duck wings, like a big knife, cutting straight at Ling Lan's face. Katie dog. Ling Lan, who was already prepared, calmly took a step back and made room for Katie dog. The ready-to-go Katie opened its mouth, like a spark from an assault rifle that was not wasted at all, accurately spraying onto the chest of the scallion duck. Boom! The scallion duck, which was filled with sparks on the front, flew out upside down and crashed into a pile of debris with a loud bang. I can't handle you with the sample. Ling Lan snorted proudly. Just now, he hesitated about the positioning of the scallion duck. Now it seems that this guy's combat power and intelligence can only become a hard-working laborer in the ranch. Take out the original wild ball to subdue the duck, which has no brainwashing function. However, in order to facilitate the rancher's management of the elves in the ranch, they will be branded at the moment of subduing. As long as the elves leave the radius of the elf ball by 500 meters, an alarm will be triggered and route guidance will be provided to facilitate the rancher's retrieval of the elves. Of course, according to the Wild Elf Protection Law, the Alliance will regularly send investigators to investigate and talk to the elves in the pasture, and such abusive behavior towards elves will also be punished by law. Task Reward. The remaining chapters of the ancient book on animal husbandry and nurturing. Task Tip. Under the bedroom floor, there is something you don't know. After subduing the scallion duck, the task was indeed completed, and according to the reward prompt, this text task cannot be transformed into a reward out of thin air. As long as the task is completed, it will turn the possibility into affirmation. If the task is not prompted, then you may never search for secrets under the floor in your lifetime. How many people are only one step away from success, and this task is to make up for the gap you have. Ling Lan clenched his fist, this golden finger is simply not too great. Moreover, the name of this book on ancient breeders sounds very unusual, and I really don't know how much surprise it can bring to myself. Katie, come with me to the bedroom. Ling Lan ran excitedly to the bedroom with his Katie dog. The floor of the bedroom was made of neat tiles, but due to time constraints, the boundary between the tiles had become blurred, making it impossible to see where the dark grid would be. Looking at the eager Katie dog on the side, Ling Lan's heart moved and said, Katie Dog, please carefully smell if there is any odor emitted by other objects under the floor tiles. Wang. Katie Dog readily agreed, immediately pouting his butt, his nostrils pressed against the ground, and sniffing every inch of the ground with force. The level of effort, Ling Lan can even see that the dust on the ground has been sucked in by the nose of the Katie Dog, which is almost as powerful as a vacuum cleaner, and no grass grows wherever it goes. Just like this, Katie Dog sniffed again and again, and just when Ling Lan thought he could eat enough ash, he finally had a reaction. Chapter 8 Scallion Duck. You should be a person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Under the bedroom door. Is it true that the most prominent place is the safest place? Ling Lan thought of countless possibilities, but didn't expect it to be near the door. Katie Dog proudly raised its head, waiting for Ling Lan's praise. Unfortunately, Ling Lan was completely attracted by the mystery of treasure exploration and forgot about the reward. Knock on the floor tiles. Well, as expected, I am not a professional and cannot detect any abnormalities. After waiting for a long time without seeing the owner express any grievances, the Katie Dog stopped wagging its tail and crouched on the ground, humming non-stop. Sorry. Ling Lan quickly rewarded Katie Dog with an energy cube, found a pry bar from the grocery store, and began to pry the floor tiles. Faced with the owner's perfunctory behavior, Katie Dog was not as sensitive, but instead followed Ling Lan bouncing around and using its claws to help dig. After some effort, Ling Lan finally dug out this palm-sized floor tile, and underneath it stood a box of unknown material. Gently blowing the dust on the box, Ling Lan, who had always been cautious, hesitated and looked at Katie Dog. Ha! The naive Katie Dog naturally didn't know what Ling Lan was up to, and tilted its head to look at him with a tiger-like head and tiger-like brain. No, Katie is my companion. Ling Lan shook his head and then took out the original field ball. Sure enough, let the Scallion Duck handle this dangerous thing. Gah! As soon as the Scallion Duck came out, it angrily wanted to settle accounts with Ling Lan. Picking up his own weapon, the Scallion Duck with scallions was full of confidence. Unfortunately, before he could take action, he discovered a black object flying over like himself. Even if you're just carving insects and using small skills, you dare to teach your skills to others. The Scallion Duck snorted coldly, and with a handsome blow, the drag knife accurately struck the iron box. However, at the moment when the scallions intersect with the iron box. Pop! The explosion, the size of a firecracker, caused the Scallion Duck to be instantly pushed out by the impact force, and its entire face was smoked into black charcoal. The Scallion Duck, who fell to the wall, looked foolishly at the scallion in his hand, which had been fried into blossoming sausages, completely unaware of what had happened. Thank you very much, Scallion Duck. Ling Lan walked over the door with a smile, thinking to herself that it was fortunate to be cautious, otherwise it would be herself who suffered losses. Seeing Ling Lan, who seemed to smile but not smile, that Song Duck instantly understood, with a strong sense of shame and anger in his eyes. However, before he could scold him, he was taken back. This kind of powerful explosion is definitely not enough to kill people. At most, it can cause lung pain. Does this not mean that the owner who left the book did not want to kill people, but rather warned himself to be careful in everything here? Ling Lan pondered for a moment, then used a crowbar to pry open the floor tiles on the lower layer again. Sure enough, nothing happened this time, but the items below made Ling Lan's forehead cool and she took a breath. Before this, he had 10,000 ideas, such as bamboo slips, oracle bones, bronze vessels, bamboo pieces, silk, and so on, which were used for recording in ancient times. However, he did not expect this thing called the Book of Ancient Animal Husbandry to be this thing. I saw a black metal texture placed quietly in the tidy dark grid USB drive. USB drive. Such a towering thing, it was actually recorded on a USB drive. From this moment on, Ling Lan once again developed a strong interest in her mysterious second uncle. No need to say, it must be this old boy who did it. Is this B.Cell really there in an instant? New task. Gourmet, task description. To tie the elf's heart, first tie his stomach. Create a dish that satisfies the scallion duck. Task reward. Message from tree fruit. Tree fruit. Sure enough, this task is based on one's own needs, and more importantly, it is a guidance that is most beneficial to oneself. But why make a dish that satisfies the scallion duck? Can't Katy dogs do it? Is it that he doesn't deserve it? I really can't understand the thinking behind this task. After blowing the dust off the USB drive, Ling Lan connected it to her old, disconnected laptop. There is only one file in the USB drive, and when opened, it is filled with some photos. The content of the photos is a text and picture recorded on an unknown animal skin, with translation annotations on the side. The first picture is prominently written as, gourmet food in a breeder's letter, from the table of contents. This letter contains a lot of content, roughly divided into 18 articles, each corresponding to the attributes of an elf. Just the food section is so incredible, how much help would it be for oneself to obtain a complete letter from a breeder? That night, Ling Lan was studying the content of the food section. Firstly, to make traditional Chinese cuisine, a special clay pot must be made. This clay pot is made by mixing the shells of various tree fruits with clay, and the proportion of each tree fruit shell must not be wrong, otherwise it cannot achieve a fixed effect. Not only the utensils, but also the production techniques and heat of each attribute and dish are completely different, and even a slight difference cannot achieve the desired effect. Ling Lan kept a simple record of the ingredients used in the clay pot and the delicious ingredients suitable for scallion duck and Katy dog, and even placed orders online overnight. My goodness, tree shells are not cheap either. Watching his money constantly being drained, Ling Lan's heart was dripping with blood. After purchasing all the necessary things, Ling Lan finally lay in bed and fell asleep. The next morning, Ling Lan was awakened by a Katy dog. Upon waking up, it turned out to be past 10 o'clock in the morning, and all the logistics vehicles had arrived at the entrance of the ranch. Watching the large devices purchased being moved into the house one by one, Ling Lan finally felt like she had a home. By the afternoon, the tree fruit shells and food ingredients purchased last night had also been delivered. Today, Ling Lan didn't go out or do anything else. He just focused on crushing all the wooden fruit shells and mixing them together in proportion. Then, he planned to ask Lin Yi to take him to the town to make a clay pot at noon. The Katy dog lay quietly on the ground, occasionally revealing its belly and waiting for Ling Lan to touch it. Suddenly, the Katy dog seemed to smell something and stood up to run outside. What's going on? Ling Lan saw Katy dog's reaction for the first time and immediately put down his work to follow. The Katy dog quickly ran into the newly sprouted sun grass and bared its teeth in the corner. Ling Lan took a closer look and saw that a part of the sprouting grass had been destroyed, and the culprit was undoubtedly the yellow-haired little Lotta who had been cleaned up by himself and Katy dog as a vegetable chicken. But this time he didn't come by himself, but with 3 companions. Although these 3 guys have similar strength to him, together Katy dog is definitely unbeatable. Huang Mao Xiao Lotta was not surprised to see Ling Lan arrive, but instead provocatively pulled down a tender bud and threw it into her mouth to chew. Chapter 9. Sand Pot Making and Invaders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Relying on the number of people to bully us. Katy's dog is back. Ling Lan snorted coldly and let you know today that Yi is not a vegetarian either. As he spoke, he threw the field ball into the air, and the figure of the scallion duck instantly gathered between little Lotta. Little Rottas never expected Ling Lan to be so bold, but they didn't fear it with their numerical advantage. Instead, they set up their attack posture, intending to catch this elf off guard. Gah! A duck roar containing resentment echoed through the pasture, and just as the scallion duck appeared, the yellow-haired little Lotta gave a command, and 3 little dog legs pounced on it in an instant. Who would have thought that the scallion duck that suffered a loss last time was also prepared for a long time? In the moment it appeared, it spread its wings and quickly leaped backwards, just avoiding the joint attack of the 3 little Lottas. Damn it! When Dazzle Duck saw it clearly, he immediately cursed Ling Lan. If it weren't for his quick reaction, wouldn't I have already thrown myself into the street? Ling Lan stood behind and deliberately cheered loudly, "Well done Scallion Duck, use parrot-like tongue." At this moment, the Scallion Duck felt like 10,000 grass mud horses rushing past in its heart, thinking to itself, "If you can't speak, quickly shut up for me. People use impact. If I hit the duck alone, it would be good." Huang Mao Xiaolada heard that Ling Lan had given instructions to the Scallion Duck, and the Scallion Duck was also released by this guy. So he directly positioned the Scallion Duck as his accomplice and instructed the little brothers to besiege together. The Scallion Duck held the scallion and barely resisted, although his individual strength was the strongest among them. His wings were difficult to match with 4 hands. "Come on, Scallion Duck. You are the best, Scallion Duck. Woo woof." The exhausted Scallion Duck struggled to explain, but unfortunately, with Ling Lan and Katy Dog cheering and cheering, it seemed somewhat unsatisfactory. In the end, Dazzle Duck saw that the explanation was useless and didn't care if Ling Lan was the one using it, so he decided to go straight ahead and fuck him. The big onion duck with full firepower was extremely fierce, and the big onion swung like a wolf's tooth stick, making it impossible for the 3 little Lottas to get close for a while. Finally, the yellow-haired little Lotta joined in to reverse the battle. Seeing that the Scallion Duck was about to lose its support, Ling Lan immediately let go of the dog. "Use sparks." The Katy Dog had been waiting for a long time when sparks accurately sprayed onto the face of a little Lotta who had just dodged the attack of the Scallion Duck. At this moment, the Scallion Duck finally couldn't hold on and lay on the ground with its eyes rolled over. Huang Mao Xiaolada was about to boost his morale when he solved the problem with the Scallion Duck. He noticed that only one of his 3 generals was left, and the rest had already been taken by Katy Dog. "Is this okay?" Although Huang Mao Xiaolada was not very clever, he was also well aware of the consequences of being outnumbered by the enemy. He decided to let the last general cover him up and run away on his own. The Katy Dog ignored the last little Lotta and suddenly thought to stay in place as it watched the fleeing yellow-haired Lotta. "Katy Dog." Ling Lan raised his voice, not knowing how Katy Dog got distracted during the battle. Faced with such a good opportunity, how could little Lotta, who had left behind a broken post, give up and reveal his huge front teeth, intending to launch a fatal blow against Katy Dog? At this moment, Katy finally regained his senses and looked at little Lotta, who was getting closer and closer. His whole body burned with flames, and he raced away like a wind and fire wheel, leaving a shallow black mark on the ground. "Is this the flame wheel?" Ling Lan's heart was beating faster, and to his surprise, Katy Dog had comprehended this skill in advance. Boom! The flame wheel collided head-on with little Lotta, and in the face of a huge impact, little Lotta was undoubtedly knocked out and lost his combat ability. After dealing with this little Lotta, the yellow-haired Lotta had already run several hundred meters and disappeared into the field. Looking at the fields destroyed by the flame wheel, Ling Lan's heart was shattered. Who could have imagined these little Lottas tinkering around, but the result was not as severe as Katy Dog's fire wheel damage. Katy Dog didn't notice the destroyed field at all, wagging its tail and running to Ling Lan's feet, waiting for praise. How clever! Ling Lan forced a smile and crouched down to rub the head of the Katy Dog, feeling both pain and joy in his heart. Katy Dog helps keep an eye on these 3. Ling Lan took back the Scallion Duck. He knew that since Huang Mao had run away again, he would definitely come back, so these 3 little Lottas must make good use of them themselves. Take out a rope and tie all 3 little Lottas together. Ling Lan simply tidied up the damaged ground. "Ling Lan, what are you doing?" Hey! Why did you catch so many little lotas? Lin Yi appeared behind Ling Lan, with a cute and petite blue bird beside her besides the Kentello. Lin Yi. You came just in time. Ling Lan breathed a sigh of relief and said, as you can see, my ranch has been resented by these little lads, so in order to prevent them from coming back for revenge, I can't go to town today. Lin Yi felt a little disappointed upon hearing this and said, Ah. Is there anything Ling Lan brother that I can help you bring back? Have Ling Lan gestured for Lin Yi to wait a moment, then took out the powdered tree fruit shells from the room and said, could you please help me make a clay pot? I need to mix these things in. Clay pot. Sure. Lin Yi nodded, knowing exactly where in town there is a place to make clay pots. Ling Lan smiled and thanked, okay, I'll transfer the money to you later. I'll trouble you this time. It's not troublesome. Lin Yi took the tree fruit powder and waved goodbye to Ling Lan. Ling Lan left these 3 little lotas for a reason. Firstly, he could turn defense into attack, attracting the yellow-haired lotas to appear again as soon as possible. Secondly, he could use them to explore the mysterious room on the 2nd floor. Ling Lan always felt like there was something inside, but he didn't have any ill intentions towards himself. In addition, second uncle also said he didn't need to pay attention, so he didn't bother to take care of it for the time being. But now there is free labor available, isn't it a waste not to try? Sitting under a big tree, Ling Lan is holding a laptop and studying the method of cooking. Although the task requires satisfying the Scallion Duck, his first dish must definitely be made for Katy Dog, after all, this is his most loyal companion. There are 3 or 4 dishes suitable for Katy Dogs, and Ling Lan chose one that is most suitable called Rizhao Power Tomato Drawing Soup. Materials need to be prepared. Fresh tomatoes, passion fruit, and simple ingredients such as chili peppers. And the Scallion Duck is even simpler. Ling Lan directly chose a dish with the simplest production method called mixed vegetable soup. This is simpler, just put the corresponding tree fruits and vegetables into the pot and stew them one by one, the only thing to pay attention to is the order of placement, heat and time. Ling Lan confidently jotted down these 2 formulas and kept simulating them in her mind. Chapter 10. The cuisine I make cannot be delicious. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At dusk, Lin Yi finally returned with a box of delicious food and a beautiful clay pot. After a long distance, Lin Yi waved her hand excitedly and shouted, Brother Ling Lan, I have helped you complete the task you entrusted me with. Ling Lan helped her unload a hug of items and said, okay, when I finish cooking, I'll be the first to invite you to come and eat. Ah! Brother Ling Lan, you still know how to cook. Lin Yi widened her eyes. This was the first time she had heard of it. Ling Lan deliberately played a trick and said, you'll know then. Kentello lowered his head and nibbled on the weeds in the pasture, then disdainfully spat to the side. He noticed Ling Lan's unfriendly gaze and smiled awkwardly. Ah. Lin Yi awkwardly lowered her hair and said, it's getting late, so I'll go home first. Ling Lan didn't have the same understanding as Kentaro, and thought to himself that after cooking well, he must be extremely greedy. Woo woof. Katy followed Ling Lan and wagged his tail constantly. He had already smelled the aroma of tree fruits, which was his favorite taste. Wait a moment. Ling Lan first checked the clay pot, which was about the same size as a normal pot. It was just right to place it on the gas stove. Wash, cut, and arrange the prepared ingredients neatly, then Ling Lan takes out her phone and starts timing. Seeing the owner's serious expression, the catty dog dared not act recklessly and squatted on the side, staring intently at the bound little lotas. The little lotas have a hard time expressing themselves, wondering if this silly dog is sick. If you have nothing to do, go to bed. What are you staring at us for? Tomatoes, guavas, sea salt, monosodium glutamate. Ling Lan added the ingredients step by step, then rotated the knob on the stove to control the heat. In fact, it is reasonable to use the flames sprayed by elves to make the best cuisine, but unfortunately, the current conditions do not allow it, so Ling Lan has to settle for the second best. Braising, ventilation, stirring step by step, Ling Lan finally turned off the fire after 10 minutes. Opening the lid of the pot, the light red tomato soup was bubbling, and the small pieces of guava were floating and sinking. Well, with all the colors, flavors, and flavors, I am indeed a culinary genius. Item name: Rizhao Power Tomato Painting Soup. Defective product. Item description: Unqualified cuisine. Wipe, unqualified dishes. Ling Lan's face turned black. He was cooking so seriously and didn't expect to receive such an evaluation. I don't believe in this evil anymore. Katy Dog, come and try it. Ling Lan, who was very confident in himself, called Katy Dog and brought the prepared soup to him. Katy the dog pulled its tail and ran to Ling Lan, forcing a smile on its face as it looked at Hua Tang in front of it. In fact, the Katy Dog had already smelled something wrong with the cooking, but he didn't dare to say it honestly. Drink quickly, what are you waiting for? Ling Lan handed the bowl to Katy Dog. Woo! The Katy Dog gritted its teeth, and since the owner had said so, it was important to express itself. I saw him take a deep breath, plop his dog's head into the soup bowl, and take a deep breath. Good treasure. Ling Lan touched the head of Katy Dog and I said there was no problem with this dish. Ugh. The next moment, Katy's face changed dramatically and he quickly ran out with his mouth bulging. Indeed, it still failed. Ling Lan looked at the half bowl of food left, but he actually knew everything, he just didn't want to admit it. The reason for summarizing failure is that the temperature of the gas stove is difficult to control, and one should switch to an induction cooker to practice. However, this bowl of nutritious drawing soup cannot be wasted. Since the Katy Dog is unwilling to eat it, let's make it cheaper for these little Lottas. Ling Lan placed the painted soup in front of the three of them and instructed with a displeased expression, very nutritious painted soup. Today is considered lucky for you all. Let's all drink it. Three little Radhas shivered and squatted in the corner, thinking to themselves, you're really not human. This is obviously food for elves to eat. Do you want to eat or not? I think you want to turn into grilled mouse skewers. Ling Lan sneered and took out the crowbar from last night, pointing at the three little Radhas like a big demon king. The three little Lottas nodded wildly in fear and quickly plunged their heads into the basin, drinking tons and tons without stopping. Calculate your reality. Ling Lan sneered, and at that moment, Katy Dog happened to come back. When he saw the swept-away Hua Tang, he breathed a sigh of relief, and even saw that little Lotta's face had improved a lot. Ling Lan took out the induction cooker and started a new round of attempts. Because each time the materials were reduced proportionally, these materials were enough for him to tinker with for a period of time. Time passed by little, and by midnight, Ling Lan had already made 5 bowls of painted soup. The Katy Dog crouched on the ground and burped wildly, making the little Lottas even more miserable. Their stomachs were chubby and they lay on the ground, occasionally leaking some painted soup from the corners of their mouths. I finally understand the essentials. I'm sure we can succeed this time. After experiencing 6 failures, Ling Lan finally had a slight epiphany. Bang dang. Upon hearing that the owner was still doing something, the Katy Dog fell to the ground. The 3 little Lottas shed tears of happiness, praying that the boss would come and rescue them quickly. If this continues, it's not important whether the little ones can survive. What's important is that they will be tortured to death by these dark dishes. What kind of expression are you? Don't worry, you will definitely succeed this time. Ling Lan placed the ingredients in an orderly manner and adjusted the corresponding temperature at regular intervals according to the steps. After more than 10 minutes, a steaming bowl of painted soup finally came out of the pot. Item name: Sunlight Tomato Painting Soup. Rating: Regular cuisine, item introduction. Let's continue to work hard in Son Yen, and everyone is waiting for you to cook. Indeed successful. Katy Dog. Katy Dog. Ling Lan barked twice in a row and found that the Katy Dog had been motionless. When she turned around, she realized that the big-bellied Katy Dog was looking at her helplessly, even struggling to turn over. Oh, but you should drink this soup while it's hot. Ling Lan scratched his head and felt a bit distressed. It was a waste of time for him to finally make it himself. However, since the Katy Dog can no longer eat it, it cannot be forced. It can only be sealed and placed in the refrigerator. Although the taste and effect may be worse, it is better than wasting it. You should know that this bowl of painted soup is made using ancient methods, which is much more nutritious than energy blocks and more conducive to the absorption and growth of elves. The three little Lottas were not much better than the Katy Dog. They were originally worried, but when they saw Ling Lan putting the dishes in the refrigerator, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief and thought to themselves that these days had come to an end. But who would have thought that after finishing the dishes, Ling Lan turned his head and gave a wicked smile. Have you eaten enough? Let's do some human affairs when you have eaten enough. What? Three little Lottas trembled. What does this mean? What personnel do we need to do? We are not human.